Hey guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and when you do, make sure to push the bell icon so you get notifications that the new videos are out.
Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. So I just filmed this video and it didn't end up recording correctly, so I'm doing it a second time. So if I seem irritated, that's why. Okay, so the whole point of this video is for me to take a look at all the states that we have in our country and try to decide what is the best states to bug out to, or to, not necessarily to bug out to, but if I was going to buy a bug out location or a bug out retreat, what state would I want to buy it in? And so that was the kind of goal here. And for you, your list is probably going to be different, but you might be able to use this process of elimination and point scoring to help you determine what would be best for you. But anyway, here's what I did. I started with population density, and let me see here. I started with population density, and these 25 states right here are the 25 states with the lowest population density, because I think that's a pretty important deal. You don't want a ton of people around you in a bug out kind of situation, right? So they're ranked from the lowest to the highest, and Texas barely made it on the list. It was the cutoff point, and all the other 25 states that had a higher population density than Texas, than at 104.9 per square mile, just got eliminated altogether. So they're not anywhere on this list. The next thing, what I did is I established 7 categories that I gave 1 point for each of those, and the categories are constitutional carry for weapons, concealed carry, and open carry. No state income tax, the top 5 states with the lowest property tax, the top 10 states with the lowest cost of living, the top 10 states with the lowest sales tax, states that do not tax military retirement pay, and states with stand your ground laws. So then I also had 5 exclusions. So if for whatever reason, if a state fell within these exclusions, and they also get removed from the list. First one was states with castle doctrine, but you still have a duty to retreat in public. So if you're in your house or your car, you don't have a duty to retreat, but if you're in anywhere else in public, then you do. And I don't like those laws. Also, top 5 states with the highest property tax. So I have the lowest states and the highest states on here, because I think taxation is theft and I don't like it. So I use that to differentiate the best 5 states and the best worst, or the 5 worst states. All the 40 states in the middle kind of really bunched together and are pretty close, and it was kind of difficult to differentiate, so I just went with the top 5. The plant hardiness zone exclusions. So this, I was basically taking a look at the map that shows the different planting zones and all that kind of stuff, and the zones that were the coldest with the shortest growing seasons ended up getting excluded, because having a bug out retreat or a bug out location kind of place where you're purchasing land, you're probably going to want to garden, grow fruit trees and those kinds of things, and you really can't do it super effectively in some of these coldest states. I also had a category for deserts, because if you don't have power, if you're trying to get water, trying to grow things and all that kind of stuff, no air conditioning, whatever, it's just difficult to live in deserts. And then the last one, my favorite, is the liberal state exclusion. That only affected 1 state, which was Oregon, but it didn't score well in all the other areas anyway. So once I took out the exclusionary states, it really only left me with a handful, and that's what you saw when we started out here. I am going to just briefly touch on 3 different states that were in the exclusionary areas, but for some people they might be able to make that exception. Wyoming scored the best across all the categories, if you were not to worry about the plant hardiness. And I would say that, having lived here for a couple of years now, Wyoming is a very difficult state to grow anything in. 3/4 of the state is pretty much like high plains desert. You get very little water. They don't grow hardly any trees anywhere. And in fact, without irrigation and a drip system, trees just really don't grow here in most of the state. So that's a tough one. The growing season is also very short. You get a lot of early frosts. You get late frosts. You get all kinds of stuff that is just really bad winds. I mean, all kinds of stuff that wreaks havoc on gardening. So that is why it didn't actually make the list for me. But in all the other categories, it actually worked out pretty well. It scored pretty well. Same thing with Alaska. And there are parts of Alaska down along the coast and everything like that that would score better in it. But since we're just doing it by state, it didn't end up making the list either. Idaho was the winner of the green states. The states that I thought would be acceptable and didn't have any exclusionary issues. So Idaho. It is a constitutional carry state. It is a low cost of living. It's in the top 10 for the low cost of living. It also has a reasonable sales tax, and it also has stand your ground. Kansas was pretty surprising on here. It's got a fairly low population density of 35.6. Kansas is a constitutional carry state, and it also is a low cost of living. It doesn't tax military and retirement pay, which is nice, and has stand your ground law. So that's pretty cool. Arkansas also scored pretty good across the board. The only thing with Arkansas is they have a duty to retreat in public. And that's just a tough one for me to ignore. So that ended up pulling it off the list. Then we got Mississippi. I was actually surprised to see Mississippi on the list. It does have a fairly high population density with 63.8 people per mile. But it's constitutional carry. It is in the top 5 lowest on property taxes. It's also in the top 10 for the lowest cost of living. Doesn't tax military retirement and is a stand your ground state. West Virginia, I thought West Virginia might actually be a little higher on the list than it was. It does have a fairly high population density at 76.6. It is constitutional carry. It has a low property tax in the top 5, and it also has a reasonable sales tax at 6.4%. Doesn't tax military and federal retirements, and it is a stand your ground state. Iowa, I was kind of surprised to find Iowa on the list here. It has 55.9 on population density. It's not a constitutional carry, but it is in the top 10 for lowest cost of living. Fairly reasonable sales tax, no tax on military retirement, and it also is a stand your ground state. And the last 3, we've got Missouri here. Getting pretty high on the population density, 88.3. It is a constitutional carry. Top 10 states. It's in the top 10 lowest cost of living states. And think about living down in the Ozarks, down in Shofarian territory with Pastor Joe Fox. That would be a pretty good place to live down in the Ozarks, I think, especially considering the waterways and the climate. And there's just a lot of game down there, tons and tons of game. It would be a decent spot to live. All right, then they also don't tax military retirement, and states with it also is a stand your ground state. So Alabama, 95.8 people per square mile. That's quite a bit. Top 5 lowest on property tax. Fairly low on overall cost of living. And doesn't tax military and federal retirements, and it is a stand your ground state. Last one on the list was Oklahoma. Had only 57 on the population density, so in that regard, if it was just that way, it would have scored a little higher, but it only had 2 points over here, so it ended up going lower on the list because I categorized them by points. And then that was the first factor, and then the second factor was by the population density. So it is in the top 10 on the lowest cost of living, and it is also a stand your ground state. So that is my list. That's how I came up with what would be the best states. And in order, again, it's Idaho, Kansas, Mississippi, West Virginia, Iowa, Missouri, Alabama, and Oklahoma. So I thought that was a pretty surprising list. I would love to hear what your guys' criteria would be if you were going to develop this like I did. What would your categories be that you would give a point for, and what would your categories be that you would exclude a state from? Because that, how you set this up really all determines how everything rolls out. But this was the way I did it. So Anyway, guys, as always, I definitely appreciate it when you click the thumbs up button, when you share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Hey, and thanks to all the guys who used the Amazon link. I put the link in the description of all the videos that I upload, and I really appreciate it when you guys use that. It doesn't cost you anything more, and it just gives me a few pennies per transaction, and it really helps out a bunch. Also, we've got the t-shirts down here. Go down there and take a look at Teespring and take a look at the t-shirts. I think there's some pretty good ones. If you guys come up with some better sayings or statements that you think would be cool on a t-shirt, put them in the comments below. If I like them too, then I might throw them on there, and stick them in the store. Who knows? Anyway, guys, have a good night, and we will see you on another video here shortly.